Hey guys, Nick here with your next gaming news. We have some announcements today, so I thought I'd do a quick blurb and we go ahead and get into it. As you guys probably know by now, the Xbox Series S was officially announced, and the official release date for both consoles has also been announced. That is going to be November 10th, so go ahead and mark that on your calendar if you're interested in the Xbox Series S line. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the news article itself. This is from The Verge. It looks like the Series S is going to be able to do 1440p with ray tracing and have a 512GB SSD. This will not have an optical drive. So, you are looking at having to store everything on this hard drive, which admittedly, by all accounts, is pretty small given the size of games that are going to be coming out. The games are going to be anywhere between 100GB all the way up to close to 200GB per install by all reports. And that's going to be difficult for this console to handle. And most you'll be able to hold like 5 games if you're lucky and everything's about 100 gig to install. More than likely you're going to be able to store 3 games and maybe a few indie games and stuff like that from the store and things like that, but that's going to be about it. Most of your major AAA titles are going to be too big to be able to fully store in here and have that many of them going at one time. Now the price point is going to be $299 for the S, which is a pretty attractive price point when you think about it. If we go ahead and take a look at some of the specs and compare them, you can kind of see where they've cut costs to be able to hit that. As we scroll down here, you can see that they have the same processor in both units. Those match from side to side. The graphics card is going to be significantly weaker. Now keep in mind, these are rumored specs. We don't have full official specs on the S yet that I have been able to find. I've been looking all day today trying to find it, and I just can't. So this is the best that I have. The last that was reported was a 4 teraflop 20 CU RDNA processor, so 4 versus 12. So that's a pretty big cut. I suspect if anything this might go up to 6 possibly, but you're not going to get anywhere near the 12. So the graphics card is going to be much smaller, but it's also not having to push as high resolution, so that may not be as big of a deal. However, one of the things you are going to have trouble with is the memory. You have 16GB that's split across various different regions of the system, meaning they have like 5 assigned for this, they have 6 assigned for this, and they have another 5 assigned for something else. They had us split up in an earlier article that I was unable to find right now, but not all 16 gig is going to be available for your games at any one time, unlike the PlayStation console. You're going to get 10 gigabytes. It's going to be split up in a similar manner. So right now it looks to be about 6 gigs shy of the Xbox Series X. So that's where they got some of your savings between that and the graphics card. They also cut the SSD from a 1 terabyte to the 512. So whereas this will be able to store about double the number of games, and it's going to have a physical media slot. So you will not be able to play 4K discs on the Series S, but you will be able to stream in 4K. It's a very important distinction. You can't use your Blu-rays, you can't use the Ultra 4K Blu-rays in this thing, but you can stream at 4K resolution. It'll be capable of doing that. Now it's going to be a lower end 4K resolution. It won't be able to do I don't doubt it'll be able to do 3440. It'll probably be some lower variation. They both have the same USB. As you can see, as I was stating before, it doesn't have a Blu-ray player. It'll do 1440p. This will do straight up 4K. This is going to be white and black, and the size on the fan and all that is pretty much unknown right now. It looks like it's going to be pretty big, because if we go back over and we take a look at some of the pictures, here's a picture of the console itself and the render and how it's going to look. I'm not a huge fan of this design. I think this speaker looking thing right here, which is basically the output for the fan, like your major fan and your CPU and your GPU, is probably all going to be stuffed under here. And this is going to be the main place that the air escapes your console, along with here along this top side. You will be able to lay this horizontally from all reports. There's no reason you can't. It's a digital system. However, you're not going to want to put anything on top of it because of this vent fan here. If you put anything on top of it, the system is likely to overheat. What I would have preferred is instead of the picture that they put here, which is the original console, I would prefer they do something like this, and you have that. That's a render that I did in Photoshop that took me roughly 6 minutes, and all I did was I basically tried to make it on the Xbox branding. I mean, if you're going to have that there, you may as well kind of make it look a little bit like an Xbox symbol, in my opinion. So I think that would look much nicer. So from an aesthetic standpoint, I don't like this very well as far as the design of the console goes. I like it a little bit better than the PlayStation 5 design, only because of the fact that it's flat, and it's like squared, so it'll lay flat fine. You don't need a stand or anything like that. I think it's a weird design from a cooling standpoint. I don't like that you're not going to be able to put anything on top of it, but you aren't going to be able to put anything on top of the PS5 either. Even if you laid it horizontally, being able to stack anything on that swooping design was not going to work. So you weren't going to be able to stack it there anyway. So neither one of the consoles is completely winning in aesthetics. I think the PlayStation 5 looks nicer from an aesthetic design. It's more problematic from being able to store it in my entertainment center design-wise. The S is much better from a design standpoint from being able to put in my console. However, it has its own problems, and I don't like the way it looks. Now, if you lay that flat, you may not even notice that vent, other than the fact that you're going to be not being able to put anything on top of it. So for a lot of people, this may be a non-issue. The bigger problem is going to be the drive space, and the fact that the graphics card is going to be significantly weaker than its older brother. So you're going to have problems being able to store a lot of games, and you're not going to get the exact same performance out of it because you're just not going to be able to. It's just not possible. However, it is an attractive budget option, and it is $200 cheaper than its big brother. So that's going to make it a fairly attractive price point for most people. Now keep in mind, they still have their other SKU in the older Xbox line that they're keeping that may drop in price again and be like sub $200 or something, making for a more attractive price point still, particularly if most of the games are going to work on it and all the subsequent consoles. Now, one thing to keep in mind that they could do with this and the Series X is you could flex the cloud capability that Microsoft has spent all this time building up to be able to offset some of the storage on your physical drive and just be able to play things in the cloud. I would say that would probably be good for things like Madden, where you're always wanting to go to next year's version, things like Call of Duty, where you always want to go to next year's version, anything that you don't really play offline anyway, like an internet outage, and you can't go online. And that would be at the time that you'd want to store things that you could use on your local drive and keep your space for those, as opposed to anything that you would, for the most part, want to play online, is I guess what I'm trying to say there. But my opinion is I like the price point. I'm not real big on the console design itself, but then I'm not real huge on most of the designs because they all seem like they're going to be awkward in my entertainment center. It seems like they want to dominate my entertainment center, not be part of my entertainment center. And I think it's something that both competitors need to start taking into consideration. Hopefully we will have more details on how PlayStation is going to respond to this, either later this afternoon or sometime tomorrow, where hopefully we will get a date and a price point on both of their consoles. I'm hoping they're going to be competitively priced with this, and they're not going to be shooting for around the $700 mark, which is kind of what I was concerned that they were going to do to begin with. That's just my thoughts. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, so go ahead and shout out in the comments and let me know what you guys think about these consoles. What do you think about my remake? Design of the actual console itself that I threw up. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's just superfluous? Do you think the whole thing's kind of superfluous? Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.